man. Party people in the place to be. It's about that time for us to. Yeah.
What's up, chiropractors? This is Dr. Nick Silveri, your guide up the mountain to $1 million practice. If you're looking for the roadmap to grow your practice fast, then keep on listening. This is the Path to $1 Million podcast, where I chat with today's most successful practicing chiropractors. And remember, if you want to get there faster, visit getmemorenewpatients.com to find out more about Leverage Media, the most comprehensive digital marketing agency for chiropractors on the planet.
What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Nick with Leverage Media. Welcome to another episode of Path to $1 Million podcast. I'm here with a good friend of mine, Dr. Josh Wagner, with Patient Mastery and his new book, You Deserve It. So, Josh, thank you for being a guest, and tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. Well, thank you for everything you do for patients, for the profession. And we connected, this in 2019, and I have been coaching consulting with chiropractors since 2014, have seminars all over the world coming up in Chicago, United Kingdom, Sydney, and really showing doctors, chiropractors, the patient-centered approach to increase your collections, your income, your practice from a place of not having to be a robot and script, not having to do endless marketing, and really being powerful and practice in your community where you become the go-to doctor. Patients want to refer to you, patients want to pay you out of pocket, especially when insurance doesn't cover, and you feel great about everything you say and do in practice, and it just becomes easier. So that's the broad view of what I share, and we'll get down into certain strategies in this call. And based on my experience over the past 5 years with doctors, coaching and mentoring doctors, I've realized one of the strongest belief systems and mindsets that anyone can have, whether it's growing your practice or any pursuit you're after. And that's the topic of my newest book or my first new book that came out just months ago, called You Deserve It, on the deserving belief. And we'll get into that too.
Awesome, man. Well, I always like touching base with you, because I just feel like you're on this really cool journey. You're helping out the profession a ton. From everything that I haven't been to one of your seminars yet, but from everything that I hear from doctors that have, you get amazing results. Like if you look at the testimonials on your website, it's, these people are ecstatic about the results they're getting. But I also am jealous that you basically get to live in LA and New York, and you had your practice in Manhattan. It's like New York is my second home. I love that place.
And I'll be in Miami Beach, which is another favorite, in 3 weekends for a small mastermind group of doctors. And that's another one of my spots.
I got you.
Yeah, just to make you a little more jealous. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't love Miami as much as I love LA and New York, but it's better than Chicago right now at 10 degrees.
And February, Miami Beach, there's nowhere better in the country.
That's probably true. Probably true. All right. So just to give a little bit of background, you practice in Manhattan, Upper East Side. You started that practice in 2010, and pretty quickly, like, you've been consulting for 5 years now. So 2014, you're just like, man, I think I got something figured out that other people need to hear. And it sounds like it was a little bit different than what you were seeing in the profession.
Yeah, well, here's the real backstory. It wasn't like, oh, who's this guy practiced for 4 years and now thinks he has it. I was well deep entrenched into the profession in chiropractic for practically 10 years before. I was taken under the wing by some top practice management coaches back right when I started college, because I figured and I realized this is something I really want to go into. I started learning about chiropractic. My mother and brother had a good experience. I had no direction career-wise. And the more I learned about chiropractic, the more I fell in love with it. And I was smart enough to go intern and reach out to doctors all over the country and get some really close mentorships. And I started seeing the 1990s practice management. And a lot of it was great. A lot of it was catered to what worked then, like really great insurance, and whether it's in-network, out-of-network, practically unlimited visits and reimbursement. And then when I was in grad school, I started seeing the trends that was changing quickly. It usually wasn't too great to be in-network. And if you're out-of-network, the deductibles getting much higher than a typical care plan recommendation, as well as a big change I saw is a lot of patients going to chiropractors. It wasn't their first time to a chiropractor anymore because of just time. People like in the 80s and 90s, a lot of times it was someone's first experience, and whatever the chiropractor told them was, okay, well, this is chiropractic. But now when it's someone's second, third, or fourth time, we all know 10 chiropractors have 10 different stories, techniques, approaches, even if they all do the same type of adjustment. So if you say something different than in their last experience, whether or not they loved or didn't like that experience with the first chiropractor, it changes the game a lot. So during grad school, I was still in the mentality of the only thing that mattered was how many patients you could see a week. Like, no one actually seemed to talk about income or collections. It was just the 500, the 1,000, all of that. And it was, one level of mindset. And I also noticed a lot of the doctors getting very burnt out from that, not having the level of money that I thought you should when you're super busy and helping that many people. And also being taught things that I didn't think were very ethical and appropriate. And so I started to see, wow, now I get why not everyone goes to chiropractors. Now I understand why it doesn't have the greatest perception, why we're at the lowest or at the bottom of the healthcare credibility totem pole. And I couldn't stand that because I have such a love for chiropractic, and I'd never want what I do to be thought of or perceived as, not the most credible or professional. So, I started even in grad school coming up with these strategies, starting to share them with some of my mentors. And because they were so entrenched in tunnel vision, they're like, oh no, Josh, that wouldn't work. We always have to tell patients exactly how many visit numbers they're going to get in a care plan. And, now you look 10 plus years later, and if you just do that one little thing, like you don't say it, you don't write it on the thing, you could have, for instance, the exact number of visits that patient's going to get in your head and on the back end in your system. Like, they're going to get the 12, 18, 24, 36, whatever it is, visits. But just by not telling them, you will see a dramatic increase in how easy it is for patients to be like, okay, yes, pay, refer, just by that little thing. And it's hard to teach old dogs new tricks. So many of the people that have been doing this in the profession for so many years, the public perception has changed, the game has changed, and what used to work so well still works to an extent, but it often feels like a real grind to most chiropractors. So yeah, this started evolving well before 2010.
And who did you, like you were saying that you were working with practice management groups, like who were you working with in those first 10 years?
Oh, well, okay, I don't want to name names because one is a lot of the stuff I didn't necessarily agree with. And it didn't make me feel good to say that to a patient, that our ROF, 45 minutes of room, both the doctor and the patient come out sweating because it was like a battle. But I will say the mentor that made such a lasting impact on me, not in terms of practice strategy, because he actually never spoke about practice strategy. It was all about headspace, heart space, and your being, BEING, is Pasquale Sarasoli, who passed a few years ago, godfather of chiropractic at 94 years old. He was giving lectures in his basement to chiropractors, past patients, students, past staff members, and it was all philosophy, personal growth and development, just wisdom. And you could condense all of his teachings into 3 words: tone over bone. And from the chiropractic standpoint, we all know the tone, like your intention with that adjustment, is far more important than what bone you're adjusting. The chiropractor is the one who gets the results, not the technique. 10 chiropractors do the same talk or the same screening to the same people, they're going to get 10 different results because it's their intention. And then with the communication, like going into that recommendations conversation, going into that new patient consult, a lot of chiropractors, they go into a financial fees recommendations and there's hesitancy, there's anxiety, there's fear. Will the patient accept this? Can they afford it? Am I going to do it right? Or the new patient consult, the intention is, oh, I've got to convince this person, or I've got to educate this person from scratch how valuable chiropractic is. So think about the self-sabotage. You see new patients on your schedule, but you actually feel overwhelmed to process them because you feel like, oh, I've got to take this person from where they are, probably the medical insurance model, to the vitalistic wellness chiropractic model. And that's a big ask for a 10-minute conversation. So tone over bone is, I teach doctors the bone, like the strategies, like say this, do this. But if you don't have the tone, if you don't believe you deserve the success you're going after, if you don't have the tone of, I want what you want with a patient, rather than they want something, a result, and you want them to understand chiropractic and become a patient for life without any symptoms, like that's a big jump. And it's not going to happen within the first 2 visits or 2 months. So having the tone, the understandings and the mindsets, you can get most of the bone wrong and you still flow because you have power and you have certainty, and people are attracted to that, and people want to follow that type of doctor, want to pay that doctor, want to talk to others or tell others about that doctor and follow the recommendations. So tone over bone is the most valuable thing I learned from my early mentor, Pasquale Sarasoli, and is a pillar and a foundation of everything I teach now.
That's great. So let's kind of jump into the structure of the podcast. So basically the path from 0 to $1 million. Just so that I get some context, what was the largest that you built your practice to, collection wise, visit wise?
Yeah, about $750,000 with a very low overhead, no associates, just myself. It wasn't all cash, but 80%, 75 to 80%, some out of network. And yeah, and like I will say, like I don't do much coaching on, let's say, I'll help doctors. So for instance, I never had an associate.
Sure.
There are certain things, like I'm not the one. If you're looking to have multiple practices and oversee multiple associates, like I'm not the guy. Can I show you certain things that what to watch out for with associates? Absolutely. Yeah. And many of the doctors I work with in my mastermind, multiple associates, multi-million dollar practices, and principals are principals. Yeah.
That's great. So the path is 0 to 250, 250 to 500, 500 to $1 million, staying above $1 million, and you coach people at all of those levels, I would imagine. So on the 0 to 250 track, what do you think that chiropractors, number one, what do they, I guess maybe mess up on the most at that level? And then number two is what do you think is the most important needle mover when it comes to getting off to a fast start in practice?
Okay, I'll answer the second part first. And I was thinking about this because I knew that these were going to be the pillars of what you asked. And this is the one section that I want the doctors listening, if you're in this category, to be very clear with what you hear me say and not get offended. Because the two things that I notice with doctors who are making approximately collecting less than $22,000 a month is the practice isn't your main priority. So there's some level of distraction, and it may be conscious. Like, you only want to do 2.5, 3 days, and you want to be able to surf half the week, or you've got a distraction family-wise. Maybe there's a divorce going on, kids are involved, and you're not fully checked into the practice. To me, if your practice is your main priority professionally and life-wise, and I don't mean like you love your practice more than your kids or your spouse, but like that's where the priority during your week is, there's no reason you should be collecting less than $22,000 a month, as well as if you value what you're doing and don't price your fee catered to what the in-network reimbursement rates are, let's say for insurance, or just accept the in-network insurance rates and recommend people to come as they want, or let's see how this goes over a few visits. If you're going to value your care and the difference you make in people's lives at the same rate an insurance company for in-network who doesn't care about you, our profession, or anything like that, that's something else you've got to reconcile internally. Like, there's no reason you should be pricing your care anywhere close to in-network reimbursement who doesn't know what you do, doesn't care about what you do, doesn't respect you. So I know that may come off a little harsh, and if someone is struggling in that area, I really, really ask you to like look at how you structure your week and how much focus you're really putting on your practice, and where you unconsciously maybe really distracted from putting the hours in, putting the intention in, marketing, internal, learning what you need to learn. I'll tell you, there's a doctor, she got my program 2 years ago as an associate because she knew she was going to be going on her own.
Yeah.
And so she learned it all and applied it to her associateship and saw great difference in retention and growth as an associate. She, 8 months ago, left, started a practice 5 months ago from scratch by herself, no assistants to start with, built up to a half part-time assistant. In 5 months, she's making over 50,000 a month collections, no insurance, just cash. Like, and she's not like someone you'd see on the street and be like, oh my God, that's just an all-star rock star. Like, she's not speaking on stages. She's an introverted female with English as her second language. So
I always say that these systems, like whether it's what we do at Leverage or what you're teaching doctors, the systems, if they're only built to like work for the top 10% most charismatic people, then you're going to be out of luck in chiropractic, because that is a small amount of people. And so you have to have things that work. The system has to work, whoever implements it, not just you're hoping that someone comes to your seminar that is real cool and real smooth.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think anyone listening could think about, if you look at the practice management gurus from like the 80s and 90s, they were pretty much all the most charismatic, like very great on stage. And half the chiropractors are going to be introverts. I'm an introvert. I've gotten comfortable on camera. People may see me do videos, Facebook, YouTube, and be like, wow, he's so extroverted. It's like, no, I've just worked and done it enough that I got comfortable. But I'm a total introvert, and there's no fireworks at the seminars. I'm not shouting. I'm just giving you like, this works. And it doesn't matter what your personality type is. If you're shy or not, you say this to patients, you think this way, the needle's going to move.
Yeah. So you said something interesting when you were talking about some different things. You talked about structuring your week. Is there a certain way that you recommend doctors that are maybe starting out or trying to get through that first level to structure things?
That's a good question. And I don't even look at it as levels. Let's say I'm teaching a doctor. I'll show this is what works best and start doing it. So for instance, on a weekly basis, I prefer Monday through Thursday, full time for the doctor, to have 3-day weekends to just recharge. And it doesn't mean on Fridays you don't work on your practice, but you're not seeing patients. If you have associates and you want them to work Fridays or Saturday mornings to open up more space, go for it. But I'm catering to the doctor who I'm working with, so there's a great life balance. It keeps it simple for the patients. Monday through Thursday, normal, full time. The hours are the same. It's not confusing. Mm-hmm. I mean, the age-old chiropractic schedule of Monday, Wednesday, Friday full time, Saturday morning and Tuesday afternoon, it's super confusing, and it's an absolute horrible way to live. It's like you never have 2 days off in a row. It's awful. So that's practice-wise. Having a morning routine, like actually devoting extra time in your morning to your headspace, your focus, yourself, whatever's most important to work on before you just dive into either practice or email, social media, any of that stuff. Having a specific meditation routine during the week. I mean, there's many layers, but that's a couple steps into structure.
Got it. And only 20 minutes a day for the deserving process, right?
That's all it takes.
There you go.
Yeah.
So give me some insight into what your morning looks like.
First thing I do is some type of meditation. So I've done many throughout my life, and there's certain ones I relate to. And so I do one of multiple types, and I may go anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour. I freehand write for a full page, and that may take 10, 15 minutes of just getting whatever thoughts are in my head on the page. And oftentimes I get lots of good ideas for the day, things I need to act on. I go for a 10 to 15-minute walk, listening to music I love listening to, or a recording of myself speaking. I do a small amount of time, what I call CEO time, where I take a focus on the big picture of business and what am I not thinking about? What am I missing? What do I need to be acting on? My schedule for the day was written the day before. So people tell me they write their schedule for the day like that morning. And to me, it's like showing up to a race and not even stretching and just going. So I couldn't even manage that. Writing the schedule for the day the night before. Those are the pillars of my morning. And it doesn't mean other things can't be thrown or added in. Yeah.
Got it. So on did you cover the thing that you feel like they're missing out on? It was probably just like they're not focusing.
Making growing the practice a priority and their main focus in life. And that's not, just as a disclaimer, not saying don't focus on the kids or the spouse or like your health or anything like that. We're talking about in terms of what you're up to during the week.
I always find it interesting because, I talk to a lot of different doctors across the spectrum, and there's definitely commonalities between the ones that are just like crushing it and then the ones that are they just feel stuck, not the ones that are brand new in practice that are trying to figure it out, but the ones that have been there for like 10, 15 years. And it's, those are the ones that I always want to be able to help. And they're usually the ones that kind of push help away the most. And they're the ones that need it the most. Cause I'm like, man, you don't realize what's on the other side. Like these people that have broken through and maybe just didn't struggle with the same things that you are right now. They're just like happier. They're more efficient. They've got more time. And it's just, as someone who I'm sure talks to a lot of different people across the spectrum, I assume you find the same thing.
100%. And that's really why I wrote the book last year, is because it was so clear after 5 years working with chiropractors. And I work with other professionals, not just other types of doctors, and people of all types come out of the woodwork, family included, like getting my perspective on things. And it became so clear. And this is what I'd say starts when you go above that 250,000 a year collections mark, all the way up to infinity, is your deserving belief. It's not just for one level, it's just a deeper and increasing belief. And that's, you're gonna get in life, whether it's your office collections, whether it's your relationship quality, whether it's your health, whether it's your happiness, any goal you have, the most important underlying mindset and belief is whether or not you believe you deserve having that. So if you're watching this, and like you mentioned, you're a doctor who's 10 to 15 years stuck, you've gone from coach to coach, you've tried different marketing realms, but it just stays stuck and it's not stuck at the level that you're happy with. Ask yourself, what is it that you want, the end result, and really be honest with yourself. Do you believe you deserve having that? And it's very common not to, because of how we grew up. What did your father, what did your mother make? What was your financial lifestyle? Did something happen that was traumatic financially and you never thought you'd be able to make more than $50,000 a month, or you didn't believe you deserved to make more than $50,000 a month, or the people you grew up with making over $50,000 a month you thought were bad people, and so you don't want to become that if you do. So we all have it somewhere. No one is immune. If you're human, you've developed undeserving beliefs throughout life. Anything you do have, you inherently believe you deserve. That's why you have it. And if you really want to see the needle move, it's not just chasing the next shiny object. It's actually working through the stuff that has you stay stuck. So undeserving beliefs are the reason for procrastination, self-sabotage, and everything that gets in the way from you moving forward and really getting what you say you want. So that's going to be at those levels from 250,000 month collections up. It's just deepening levels of what you believe you deserve to collect, as well as income, as well as the lifestyle that provides you.
Got it. So at the 250, going to the 500 level, what are some things that, beyond the feeling like you deserve it, what are some things that you think doctors at that level that really accelerate through that portion of their practice? What do they focus on?
Well, definitely at that level, I didn't mention anything about structures, systems, procedures inside the practice at the beginning level. I truly
Yep.
believe if you don't have to have any real procedures or structures, and if you really are focused on at the beginning level before 250, if you're really focused on growing your practice, you should be able to do it without even structures and procedures.
Because it could just be
At the
it could just
250
be
to
you
500,
like
so we're
doing it.
talking 22,000 to like 45,000 a month collections. And I'm assuming also no associate and perhaps one assistant, that yes, you definitely at that level to have the conversions, to have the retention, there's got to be some type of marketing focus. You've got consistency. And by the way, I don't talk much about marketing at all, not because I don't believe in it. Absolutely not. If marketing shows a return on investment, do it.
Right.
I'm just not the new patient strategy guy, but I'm, nothing against putting money towards marketing as long as it's showing you a return. But when I talk about systems and procedures, I mean a way that you feel great about and that works, processing new patients. And that's the consult. That's creating recommendations that actually people, it makes sense to them. It's easy for them to invest in. Not easy because it's cheap, easy because it doesn't look like they're agreeing to a mortgage loan. I've seen so many care recommendations in the profession that's like all this paperwork, all this numbers. It's so confusing. It's so overwhelming. And that really hurts referrals and people saying yes, because the second someone has any level of confusion, they're taking a step back. So having communication, a consult, creating your recommendations, the structure of the recommendations and the fees and the prices, and a recommendations conversation, as well as the assistant being trained on how you do it, how to finish it off, a flow to your office that works. That's without a doubt what's needed at that level. You most likely can't just wing it and be getting 50,000 a month collections.
Right.
By yourself. Yeah.
And you think that at that level, if you just wanted to, if you were mainly an adjusting doctor, that you and one full-time staff member are able to grow through that level pretty easily?
From my personal experience and the doctors I work with,
yeah.
Yes. And that's not saying, hey, if you want an associate, you can have one, but from what I observe, and I don't think you need one at all. I mean, maybe it's another assistant, like if you have a tech assistant or another CA, but definitely not another doctor at that level is not needed.
Yeah, I think at that level, you're fine doing everything, like seeing all the patients yourself.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, for a lot of doctors, it's small tweaks. When I talk about a system, sometimes with chiropractors, because we're not often, maybe a more heart-based, more empathetic, like when we hear systems and structure and procedure, we get overwhelmed. It doesn't have to be something that makes you feel like you're in a box.
Right.
When I'm talking about like the new patient experience. And that's what I love teaching, things that the patient loves to hear, not how quickly can you educate them to lifetime care or get them to think they shouldn't go to an MD or any of this ridiculous stuff. Like a lot of doctors, when you just flip the switch in your head and realize that if you're there for the patient, more than you're there for chiropractic. Like if you fall in love with the patient that's knocking on your door more than you fall in love with your service, which is tough for chiropractors because we love what we do, things switch immediately. And then when you get the communication, so patients don't feel like you're jamming chiropractic down their throat, but you're more there to help them get what they want, and you're going to show them how to get it, and they're going to pay you for it. And what they pay you is dramatically less than the difference it's going to make in their life. And you can display that on paper and through a 5-minute recommendations conversation that's mostly focused on what they want, not, again, what the x-rays say or what chiropractic is. It's not some overwhelming structure or system that you have to feel like a cog in a wheel, which I know some chiropractors get worried about. Like, I have a testimonial on the event page that it's a female in California. And this is a mother of 2 with 2 employees who, after just coming to the training, started making $10,000 more in collections a month without any more overhead expense. And that was 3 years ago. And then she coasted for 3 years because that was so much better. I mean, I remember her telling me like, Josh, no, I need a new car. Now I can get the SUV I wanted and all the premium upgrades, and I don't even have to blink because it's $10,000 a month more income, $120,000 more a month a year.
Yeah.
She texted me on New Year's Day because she heard a different podcast recording I did, and it just lit another fire under her. But she's like, Josh, I didn't tell you, but I reconnected with your material last year, and that 10,000 extra a month has grown to 30,000 extra a month. Like, again, without increasing the overhead, think about how much difference that is. And I'm telling you, she's still probably doing 30% of what I teach. Like, she doesn't feel stuck in a system where she's just a cog in a wheel.
Yeah. The thing that one of the things that I always think about, especially with my practice, because my overhead is pretty fixed at this point. Like I've already paid for all the things, and like we're at a certain level of collections. And you know, when you're at that point, the next 10,000, the next 20,000, there usually is not a need for more staff, more bills. Like my mortgage isn't going up if I collect $20,000 more. So sometimes when you are just kind of like bumping along and like, you know, taking home 4,000 one month and 10,000 another and losing 4,000 another month, if you could just consistently add, like you said, like 10,000 a month extra doesn't sound like that much, but I mean that like her whole life has changed.
Right. Again, if your overhead doesn't increase, that's $120,000 more a month a year to a fixed, most likely lifestyle. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say next increment.
Next. All right.
Yeah.
So next is going to be the 500 to $1 million. This is where I feel like even the ones, like the chiropractors that I feel like have got it, you know, like they've got good systems. They made it on their own. They made it to that 500 level. This is the part where I find that most successful doctors, quote unquote successful, this is where they tend to get stuck.
Yeah. So at this level, this is where it's not just about you, where I see in terms of this is where your staff has to be great. Yeah. And you can get away up to that 50,000 collections a month or 45 with it being the person who just answers the phone okay and smiles. This is where your staff has to be like go-getters. They want to learn. They want to come to the seminar with you. You want to take them to the seminar. You know they're not going to be like, no, I want to stay home that weekend. And it doesn't even have to be because of bonus incentives you've built in. It's because you've either developed that person or that you were smart enough to hire that person, staff. Right. So that's the first thing. Second, and you're of the mindset of, you know, how valuable staff is. So you put the investment in time and energy into training them. Second is at that level, a lot of doctors do get an associate, and it doesn't have to be an all-star or great, but quality, someone more than just an extra set of hands to adjust numbers. I would say above the $1 million mark, jumping ahead, but that's where like associates have to be real quality and go-getters, and hopefully have some type of an incentive built in where the better they do, the more they get compensated. But you know, good associates at that next level of deserving belief, because now we're getting to, so yeah, 500 to $1 million. It's still at the point where like that $1 million mark, that's more of a belief system than how many new patients are you getting in the doors a month? What are your fees? And then I would put it also into that category, expert care recommendations, where you value your care enough. It doesn't have to be super high prices or gouging patients or anything like that, but you're probably not just accepting in-network rates. You're probably not pricing your care at in-network rate price structures. Like you have a level of value in your care and charging for it and being able to communicate to patients without fear, scare care, any of that.
Yeah. How do you feel on like the deserving belief? Like, let's say the doctor's got the full deserving belief, but if their staff like doesn't believe that people should make this much money, like how much of a liability is that to have somebody at the front desk or have an associate that doesn't think we should be charging this much or doesn't think we should be collecting $1 million a year.
Oh, 100%. And so it's not like you're going to ask them, do you believe the practice deserves to collect this, or I do? You're just going to see them self-sabotaging the practice. Like, not as many of the new patients calling in for a phone call actually get booked. Something happened on that phone call, or people forget to be rescheduled, or if the assistant is happening to do the financial part of the conversation or process it, something goes wrong. So you won't really be able to know they don't believe we deserve it, or you're probably not gonna be able to ask them, like, a confused or lie to you. You're just gonna see it in performance. And again, there's another level of marketing.
What's the best way to track that? To like, if they're not going to tell you and it's something you have to observe, I would imagine that like looking at metrics would be the easiest way, because you can't like watch them do everything.
Oh yeah. And I mean, I haven't brought up stats, but you should be keeping stats, the ones that are actually important to your practice. So everything from how many new patients called to actually scheduled, how many new patients came in to actually became a patient or got onto a care plan of some sort, referrals. I mean, I don't care about office visits, and I don't think the practice should be based on collections, based on visits in the office, serving services. That's a different story. But yeah, I mean, based on stats that they intricately are involved with.
All right, so we get to the $1 million mark. At this point, you really got to have like a staff around you. It can't just be about you. At this point, it's even probably tough to do it with just one associate. I mean, you can, but at this point, you're starting to talk about multiple associates, I would imagine. What are the common traits, I guess, that you see with like your most successful clients that are at that $1 million and above mark?
Well, I'll tell you, I see enough practices from the $1 to $2 million mark that really it could be 2 doctors. And it doesn't say, oh, you shouldn't get more, but I'm saying it could be like I don't think that to go over $1 million, you have to have 2 associates, 3 doctors whatsoever. Maybe 1.5. So the associates could have their own practice. Like, they're go-getters, they're quality. The staff there's no questions, they're quality, because look, there's going to be a level of you're seeing, and I'm talking about one practice, not even multiple practices adding up.
Right.
You're seeing a certain number of people, obviously, a week, where there's just got to be fluid and efficient, and you're saying things in 10 seconds rather than 40 or a minute. And you're most likely charging fees where people expect there's a level of service associated with that. And also another level of focus and structure around marketing and new patient generation. Because oftentimes at that level, with the level of overhead staff, an associate or 2, you can't fluctuate with having bad months as easily.
Yeah, right. You talk a lot about fees, more than I've probably heard another coach talk about. Like, I usually just don't hear anybody talk about like, well, your fee should be this or that. Like, what do you think? It seems like you recommend having a more premium price so that you aren't so a slave to the visit number.
Correct. Well, and those are slightly 2 different. So what I see chiropractors really suffer from as just an epidemic professionally is thinking about their fees based on things that they shouldn't. Like, what's the stereotypical chiropractic fee? Like, I know when I went through college, it just seemed to be $45 a visit. And now, sure, that would fluctuate a little based on if you're in a maybe more expensive city, but that was just the thing. Yeah. And I'm not saying $45 a visit is wrong or cheap. I'm saying just that mentality. So when chiropractors think about their fees in terms of the actual visit, and then they get into, well, what are the other chiropractors in my area charge? What maybe are the reasonable and customary insurance in my area? How much time am I spending with them? Like, if I spend 10 minutes compared to 3 minutes, or someone else spends 10 minutes, I shouldn't charge as much as them. Or how hard was it to do what I'm doing to that patient? And whether it's an adjustment that you've become so smooth at, it's so simple, or you're waving a laser over someone and a monkey could do it, like that could also make it tougher for a chiropractor to think, oh, I'm going to charge $75 or $100 for that. You know, what instructors said to you in school or coaches have told, like, so I will never tell a chiropractor, this is what you should charge, whether it's for a plan of care or a single visit. Yeah. Because it's a very personal number and it evolves through time. And ultimately, when you look at it from any of the points I mentioned, like a per visit fee, you're starting off just down the wrong rabbit hole. And here's how chiropractors should start to think about what their fee is that will make sense to the patient and feel good about them. They'll feel good about, and they'll feel like they're getting reimbursed well for what they're doing. So instead of anything about like your technique or your office visit time or what's the typical per visit fee, think about the difference in that patient's life that you're making. We all know what's the stereotypical cases that come to us and divide it into like a more mild, moderate, standard case and a more chronic or severe. And for each of those, what's the amount of time that you're going to do an initial length of care with? Is it 6 weeks? Is it 3 months? Is it 5 months? Whatever it is, it's up to you and your clinical experience. And think about the typical patient. Are they getting 80 to 100% symptomatic relief? Are they getting back to their life? Are they able to sleep through the night? Is their spine changing? You know, objective, subjective, what's actually changing? And realizing that probably the majority of your patients, you are getting 80 to 100% resolution of a significant thing that they came in with. And significant can just mean chronic low-grade back pain is the pebble in the shoe. That is messing with someone emotionally and physically their entire day and bothering every part of their life. And when you start realizing that you are giving people their life back, not philosophically, not green book pounding, like if someone's not in pain during the day, that's getting their life back. This doesn't have to be the come to Jesus innate conversation. And when you realize when you're giving people their life back, how valuable it is and how worthwhile it is. And when you find out in a consult what that actually means to them, like the things on their weekends, their evenings, their work that they can't do now or can't do well enough. And you charge based on that. This is it. This is how you set your fees. You charge based on people getting their life back. Whatever you feel comfortable with is going to be far, far lower than the actual cost and value of them getting their life back. And for the mild, the moderate, and let's say more chronic severe, pick a number for that case. And then you can work backwards with a little bit more strategy for a single visit fee. But for the cases, like if you start from the single visit and then get bigger, wrong rabbit hole. If you start with, this feels right to me and makes sense, and is going to be 10% of what that person feels based on getting their life back, you're starting off on a stronger platform that's just more congruent with exchange of value.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When I hear you talk about kind of how your thought process is with coaching, I tend to see like coaching philosophy on a spectrum. So like over on this side, you've got 12-month care plans. Everybody gets basically the same thing. It's, X amount of several $1,000s. And then over on the other side, it's the joint. It's basically like, let them do whatever they want, charge, whatever the lowest fee is in the area so that you always get chosen, and just, kind of give the market what they're looking for from chiropractic without, you don't have to convince them of anything. It's all cash. They just come in, get adjusted, and they're out, right? So it seems like you're kind of in the middle, to where it's like, we still want them under lifetime care. We still want them to get maybe the 12 months of care, but it sounds like your philosophy is a little bit more step by step.
Yeah, well, put it this way, I'll show you what I like from each side and then what I do. And pretty much I just take what works nowadays. Yeah. So the whole joint model where you're talking about just give them what they want. Yep. Yes, that breeds to 1, 2, 3, and you never see them again, and they feel 50 to 80%. But it's an awful model in terms of business wise. And I get, the doctors work at the joint, they get paid a small salary, and someone else is making the money. Yeah. So, but the philosophy of give them what they want and how the joint markets, the joint isn't marketing, come for chiropractic. The joint is marketing for come because you have these pains or these injuries, which is the only thing patients are looking for. So their marketing is smart, and the philosophy of give them what they want. So what I teach doctors is how to communicate that to patients. I'm giving you exactly what you're looking for. It's not my agenda, it's your agenda. Now I'm going to give you the recommendations. It's completely up to me how we get there. So the patients don't run the recommendations. The doctor runs the recommendations, but verbally in communication and the energy around it is you're giving the patient exactly what they want. Now you get to that other end of the spectrum where you're talking about everyone gets the same care plan, year long, usually high number of visits. That evolved purely in the late 70s when insurance came out. That purely just evolved when insurance started reimbursing. And it was how many visits could we bill for, and how can we educate patients to realize they need to come in 100 times. So now that's changed, so it doesn't work. It scares patients tremendously, high visit numbers. I'll tell you, anything over 8, 10, 12 visits raises red flags, scares patients. I'm not saying don't recommend more than them. I definitely would, but you're not going to say it. But chiropractors think, I'm only recommending 18 visits. I get adjusted every week. Or, I used to recommend 36 or 62. Like, that can't be scary. Trust me, it is. Their uncle who got chemo 8 times and got healed of cancer, or got cancer out of the way, or now it's not detectable, only went 8 times. Why do I need to come to you for 8 times for low-grade back pain? Or, 36 times. So 1 year is super overwhelming and scary. High visit numbers, which is anything in the teens and above, raises red flags. And everyone getting the same exact care plan is just, come on, it's incongruent. Now, it doesn't mean your intention isn't, I'm going to see great results with them in this initial phase of care, and then ideally they're going to stay on. That could be your intention, but you're not talking about it from the beginning. So another staple is you're not talking about wellness, maintenance, continued care after what they're coming to you for anytime in the beginning, before they actually start their initial care plan. Then have different care recommendations catered to different presentations, what objective findings, goals, and whether it's a mild, medium, or severe case, it doesn't mean that you stop after those initial recommendations. Absolutely, there's a way to continue care for their benefit, for their continued goals, for their continued health and growth. And I wouldn't do any initial recommendations more than 6 months, and that would be for the severe. And that also doesn't mean that you're guaranteeing the person is perfect at 6 months. You're recommending an initial phase of care. And what I see from the old days, when I show doctors how to, and a lot of doctors, again, they did it for a year to spread out the payments to make it more feasible. And when I show doctors how to structure the care, communicate it, and price it, you could charge the same as what you did for the year care plan, for a 3-month care plan. People will pay it. And now you didn't have to wait a whole year to get that money. And by month 4 or after 3, patients are continuing with more care, so that the collections are coming a lot easier and quicker and more efficiently. And there's just give the patient what they need. You're in complete control of the schedule. Communicate what the patient wants, and structure it in a way that doesn't scare them or overwhelm them is a winning recipe for fees and recommendations.
Yeah, I agree. So I want to talk a little bit about the You Deserve It book. I think it's great that you're going out into the general public. I always love it when chiropractors are going and really talking about the way people should be living their lives out to the general public. And so give me a little bit of insight into what caused you to write the book, and what that process has been like, as you've been promoting. I've seen you on TV a bunch of times, and
it's been fun. I've gotten on CBS, ABC, and NBC so far. I'm quoted in Forbes online, which has felt great, and great reviews on Amazon, not just from clients. And I've been a student of self-growth and self-development since late teen years. And not until I was really coaching chiropractors did I see it from the other end of the spectrum, like rather than the student being the teacher, the mentor. And it finally just clicked one day. It's like I'm giving relatively the same information to chiropractors all over the world. Some of them are taking it, and like you mentioned, you see the testimonials glowing. But I'm not going to say every single doc who's used my material is a testimonial. No, there's lots spun their wheels, procrastinated, fought, didn't, self-sabotaged. And it really just clicked in my head one day that if you don't believe you deserve having what you want, you will self-sabotage, you will procrastinate, things won't work out. And when you do believe you deserve it, you'll start moving forward in a way like you won't self-sabotage, you'll take the right steps. There's going to be a level of synchronicity that just things happen. You meet the right people. You don't become a victim to bad habits that self-sabotage you now. And that is the foundation, because you can have the money for marketing, you can have the resources, you can have mentorship, you can have support. But if you personally don't believe you deserve something, all of that you will self-sabotage and push away. Like Nick, I'm sure there are so many practices that you could send a bunch of new patients to, and then they mess it up on the inside. It's the same thing. So that really, it became so apparent at the 3 or 4 year mark, realized it at the 4 year mark, and then of coaching chiropractors, and then like over the 4th and 5th years, wrote the book. And now that's a staple in my seminars. Like the whole first day, we focus on the deserving belief in personal growth and development. And then we get into the logistics of the new patient experience. And same with the online program, same with anyone I'm working with mentoring, because if I'm just talking about the strategy, but they don't have the belief, it's going to turn into self-sabotage. And
you always do the day one that way? The first day of the seminar, did you always do like the deserving belief piece?
I used to not to, and it wasn't until, because I've been doing the seminars for about 3 years. The first year I didn't, and then I introduced it 2 years ago, and everyone was like, this is so much more fun, and this has made such a difference. And it doesn't just apply to practice. Again, it applies to your health, your relationships, your personal finance. It applies anywhere. And that's why the book is not for chiropractors. It's for anyone. And a lot of chiropractors actually are starting to gift the book to patients because it takes the relationship to another level. Rather than patients feeling you're just there for their health, they start to realize, wow, this doctor really cares about me and my overall life. And that's a level of retention and referrals just from gifting them a book.
Yeah, and it's like, who doesn't like, you're already there. You've already flown to Chicago for the seminar. Who doesn't want to get some personal development out of the deal as well? I think that's such a smart way to structure it.
Yeah, it's great. And a lot of doctors don't even realize it's going to happen and are completely caught off guard, but then that's their favorite part of the weekend.
Right.
Yeah. And what's a great part is because doctors come at every different level of practice. And what happens is you see even the doctors who you can tell or have shared that they may have the multi-million-dollar practice or $1 million practice, and a doctor may seem, oh, they're so above me. You start to realize that we're all the same. We have all the same issues, fears, undeserving beliefs, and it causes a great connection and also doesn't make people feel as on their own island. Yeah. Because we're humans, we all deal with the same stuff, just at different levels.
Yeah. For those doctors, I talk to, especially now with online, with ClickFunnels, everybody's got something that they're an expert in, and they all are starting to think about getting that message out. As someone who seems like you're successfully making the transition from, just selling to chiropractors or just being in your brick and mortar to going outside and selling to the general public. Give me a little bit of insight into what that's been like. What have been some of the things that have helped you or that you've learned in this process?
Okay. So you're not talking about like a chiropractor doing it. You're saying my specific process?
Well, yeah, like I talk to chiropractors a lot and they're just like, Nick, I want to create blah, blah, blah and sell it to everybody. in the world, like these online practices, but it's not always just about like health. Like they just might have some idea that they want to now sell to like most chiropractors they're adept at like running a local business that has 4 walls and they market to 5 miles around it. It's very different, you know, and I tell people, I'm like, listen, our done for you services for chiropractic, like physical locations, I don't really like want to have to try to figure out how to now sell your thing to everybody in the country. So I'm just interested in your perspective as you're going through this.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, I always knew this, but it's easier, or I knew this fundamentally upstairs, but experiencing it now, definitely without having a very, very specific target audience, you're a small fish in a big pond. So the overall understanding of, let's say, the book and the Deserving Belief, that can apply to anyone of any age, of any situation in life, which is good, but from a marketing business standpoint is awful because, you know, well, is this exactly for me? So my intention really with this was, as in addition to what I was offering chiropractors, and then, hey, if the general public wants it and wants to know more, it's available for them. So my intention, like right now, isn't that I'm transitioning and letting go of working with chiropractors and then Deserving Belief is for the general public. And I don't think that would be a good idea based on how it's positioned right now, which is really, this works for everyone, which, you know, is not, it's just fundamentally.
But I do like the angle of it, because I think it's very easy for people to understand. Like, I do think that once it's said to them out loud, they're like, yeah, like, why do I get all the way to the finish line and not finish? You know, why do I struggle to start things? You know, like whatever their problem is. You know?
No, you're right. It's super easy to understand, which I'm grateful for. Anyone can not just understand it, but if they're honest, relate it to somewhere in their life. Because again, you could be a billionaire or you could have the best relationship in the world, but somewhere, you know, you have an undeserving belief somewhere in your life. So everyone can relate to it. But that being said, my goal for it, and I know at some point it will have a tipping point. I mean, it's been out for like 3 months. I know it will have some level of like catching fire, but I'll tell you the last thing, I would not want it to be viral where it's like I have just inundation of hundreds of thousands or millions of like people, like, you know, social media. And like, that's not the life I want to live. And I'd rather be there for the people I am serving, like say chiropractors, the chiropractic profession, and then the general public of a real small, not small relatively to the whole general public, of like a real committed, interested base for seminars, masterminds, some coaching. But yeah, the goal isn't like to try to make this go viral. I mean, trying to think of chiropractors, like maybe Josh Axe is like maybe the one chiropractor, you know, who's gotten to that level, and it's like, it's not a good business model. It's 1 in a million. Like, you know,
let's not make plans assuming that we're gonna replicate Josh's success. Right.
Yeah. So that's.
No, I think that's a smart way to do it though. Like you've got your you know, your base and what you're great at, and it's like just an added bonus for them. And it's like you said, if they start giving it to their patients, it just might spread organically. And you know, if it gets results, it gets results, and there's not any stopping it once people start telling their friends and family. You know?
Yeah, and I mean, it's something that I know I wouldn't want to go my whole entire career and not put this body of work out there, because I know how valuable it is. It's definitely not just for chiropractors, and it's just, even when I was writing the book, it was just as much of a process for me to open up and share myself and the experience of it, just as much as, okay, the final product, getting it in stores, getting people to read it, you know, it was just as much of the journey, was just as much a piece of my own growth. So that's really important.
I know that a mutual friend of ours, Alex Vidan, was kind of working with you on how to be on TV. So for people that are trying to get on television, what are some of the things that you learned worked really well in terms of being on TV?
Okay, so Alex helped me tremendously with being on camera, not so much getting the segments. Like
That's what I meant. Like, no, I know. But like,
okay.
once you were on, like, if somebody does get on TV, like I've been on a couple of times, and sometimes you just like show up and you're just like, oh, I guess we're doing this now, So.
Oh yeah, because it's so different. Because I'm so comfortable on selfie camera and my own because I've done it so many times. But it's so different when you're in the studio and you've got big lights and you've got someone who they never tell you every question they're going to ask, and you may only talk to them 30 seconds at most before. So it's an extremely different situation, and it's tough. So first I'd say definitely reach out to Alex because he has a structure and a protocol that is extremely helpful. And do your due diligence. Watch as many of the segments as possible to know what do they usually open with? How do they end? What is the cadence? A big one for me is I've gotten progressively better over the, I think, 5 segments I've done. But a big one for me was the first one I didn't take into account how many minutes the segment was going to be. Mm-hmm. So I really got like rushed off. I mean, the producer in the back was waving their arms. They were going like this. And then once the host saw it, quickly got rushed off. And that wasn't fair to them. And it doesn't look good for other people watching it. Like, oh, this guy doesn't stay within time marks. So that's one thing I noticed that I didn't prepare for as well, is if they say you have 3 minutes, don't practice with someone answering the questions and it taking 4 minutes. Like, get it within that time frame.
Got it.
Perfect. Yeah, because here's when you do your selfie videos, you go as long as you want, and no one's stopping you. And so
I every time I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this one 3 to 5 minutes for sure. And I look at it seems like I'm like, oh, that might have gone a little long. But I look at it and it's 9 minutes.
Yeah, it flies.
Yeah, can't do that on TV. So with the deserving process, it's a 3-step process, correct?
3-step meditation, on drjoshwagner.com, you can get an audio of me guiding you through it, and read the book. You'll learn how to do it in the book. And then I'd recommend using the audio, free download, to guide yourself through it rather than do it on your own.
Got it. And the book, I assume, can be found at drjoshwagner.com?
That or Amazon.
Amazon, okay.
Yeah.
And it's called You Deserve It, right?
Yeah.
Got it. Perfect. So if somebody is interested in, I feel like we've talked a lot about your coaching methods, and I do think that people, after listening to this, should have a pretty good idea of like where you kind of differentiate yourself from. So if somebody's interested, where's the best place for them to find out more about the date? Can you give the dates of like when?
So the easiest place to go, patientmastery.com. You can see my next 3 trainings. The next one, May 1st to 3rd in Chicago, then end of June in United Kingdom, then mid-July in Sydney. And you can also see a less than hour free presentation where I show the 3 most important strategies, one being the deserving belief. Then I was alluding to you, Nick, about like patient-centered communication. Well, I'll give you exact communication on there that you can start a consult with, that'll have the person really see you as the leader, relax their shoulders, rather than try to steamroll you or tell you what they need. And then a way on going deeper into how to recommend care without having to attach visit numbers to it, even if you do recommend 24, 36, 64 visits. So it just comes off easier for patients to want to go forward with.
That's great.
Yeah.
And that's on Patient Mastery as well.
.com. Yeah.
Perfect. Anything else that we didn't cover that you think the people should know?
Not really. If you're still watching this right now, thank you for being a chiropractor. Thank you for investing time in your growth. I hope to meet you at an upcoming seminar, and just thank you for all you do and all the people you serve.
I appreciate it, Josh. So if anybody wants to find out more about Josh, go to either drjoshwagner.com or patientmastery.com. And Josh, I just appreciate you giving as much as you do to the profession, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you for what you do.
Just because this episode is over doesn't mean you can't continue your path to $1 million practice. We've created chiropractic's most full-service marketing agency at Leverage Media to help you reach $1 million a year fast and continue to grow. You can get a free strategy session with me absolutely free right now. To get started, go to getmemorenewpatients.com. Once again, go to getmemorenewpatients.com, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Path to a Million podcast.